No. I'm recording it's like a walking show. You know the bit where the spider crawls up onto the lion's shoulder and says, "Well, howdy do?" Well, that is exactly what it was like.
Is it a massive spider?
Huge. This whole part of the world really was in prehistoric times like a really... Oh, this is rubbish. It's not good enough. Do it again.
Incarnation. And then it's got this lovely bright blue and bright green... Black... Oh, is that Adam off for a run?
Yeah, it is.
Oh no, he's forgotten something. He's going back.
His shoes.
It's our next door neighbour. He's like... he likes to...
Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring Walking the Moors.
Oh, it's lovely.
Hey, last time we celebrated the first inklings of spring with Kay's wonderful Easter sprinkles, and today we venture out into the wilderness to actually get a taste of the start of spring. And for me, there's nothing quite like walking through a landscape and seeing those flowers appearing from the soil.
Oh, it's lovely,
like on a Sunday morning from your duvet. Do you know what I mean? That is, when I see them, it is what it looks like, because they're all like a bit sort of shriveled and just like coming up. They're like, is it okay to come out now?
Daffodils and crocuses, and snowdrops have been out a bit, haven't they? But it's now the daffodils are now sort of taking over the crocuses, aren't they?
Yeah.
Which is lovely. I love my favourite daffodils are the teeny tiny ones.
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah, absolutely. The only downside for me, and you know, there'll be loads of people, there's two downsides I've just remembered, and they're minor. They're very minor. The first one is, now is the start of the season where I have to start taking antihistamines.
Yes, hay fevery.
Because it's sort of that key time, isn't it, when the grass starts to grow. But also, as well, the other thing that I don't enjoy quite so much, with the weather just starting to get warm up, is the arrival of the bugs. We've just had to deal with a creepy crawly.
I was just up in the bedroom, and I was like, what's that on the window ledge? The bedroom windows were open, and I was like, what's that? So I was at the other side of the bed, so I was like, what's that? And it was this great big black thing, and I thought, is it moving? It was moving. It's a huge bee, like massive bee. So I yelled Dan, and he came and rescued it and popped it out of the window, and it flew off, so all was good.
All wasn't quite so good when I was driving along in the car the other day, and I had a similar experience to UK, and I'm driving along and I suddenly noticed something big.
Inside the car?
Yes, crawling. And I turned, and have you seen Madagascar? You know the bit where the spider crawls up onto the lion's shoulder and says, "Well, howdy do?" Well, that is exactly what it was like.
Is it a massive spider?
Huge.
That could be really dangerous driving. Do you know, if you have a fear of spiders?
So big, in fact, that I think he could have driven the car.
What did you do? Wind the window down?
I did. I wound the window down, and he flew out. And they do tend to be quite hardy, don't they?
Oh, I'm sure he'd be fine.
They
don't weigh anything, do they?
Drop and roll.
I'm sure.
And then crawl to the side of the road.
Oh, that would have panicked me.
Do you know what? It's a film I've only watched once, and I do remember enjoying it, but I've never been drawn to watch it again.
Arachnophobia.
Yeah, with Jeff Daniels.
I think I've watched it a couple of times. I could never watch it now.
It was a huge,
terrifying film.
I wonder if it was his first big role, Jeff Daniels. I don't know.
It's a very good film, but mortifyingly scary if you don't like spiders.
Julian Sands as well.
Yeah, I like Julian Sands.
He's not in it very long.
No.
Yeah, but, you know, we digress.
Yes.
Hey, now, we spoke last time about our discovery of nairns. And if you remember, nairns, beginning of last show, we spoke about nairns and their gluten-free produce and their crackers and all those things. Well, we've only gone and made another discovery. Because with the greatest of respect to gluten-free pasta, it tastes rubbish.
It's not brilliant. We've had it quite a few times. We've tried a couple of different brands, haven't we? One of them was 100% maize, and the other one was maize and something else.
Yeah,
they're okay.
And quinoa and rice.
Yeah, they're all right, but I'm not mad on them.
They're not great.
No.
So, Poirot here
How did I just suddenly thought to myself, I didn't see anything anywhere. I just suddenly had a thought in that, we know that Dan's okay with spelt flour because I make bread for him all the time, every week. Usually, I've got to make you one today, but usually I make spelt flour bread for Dan every week. And I also made some scones actually with spelt flour last week, which turned out great, but I put too much raisin agent in, so they tasted a bit odd, but it wasn't the flour. And we both tried them and our stomachs were fine. So I thought, right, can you get spelt pasta?
So you just thought of it?
I did.
Amazing.
So I googled it, and yes, of course, you can get spelt pasta. And in fact, I found a UK company that did lots of different varieties. They did wholemeal, they did white, in sort of spaghetti, fusilli, penny, all the different sort of things.
The best bit being, of course, you read out the reviews.
I read the reviews, and it was like an independent review site. It wasn't on the actual website itself, but they were all really positive. A lot of people who said that they couldn't tolerate gluten were fine with it. Nobody reported any sort of problems at all. So I thought, well, we've got to try this.
Now, I suppose it's important to say, obviously, spelt pasta is not gluten-free.
It's not gluten-free, no.
But
so it's not for people who are celiacs or gluten intolerant.
Yeah.
However, we're not either of those. We're just a bit sensitive to gluten.
Yeah. I've never felt as good.
I feel so much better in
now
my
that we've
tummy.
cut right down.
We've virtually cut out all gluten as far as we can.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a little bit in stuff, and that's been fine. But we've also not been having processed foods or anything like that. And difference in tummies for both of us, because we both have tummy issues for different reasons, and it's just been great. So we haven't tried this spelt pasta yet, but I think it might be arriving today.
And it couldn't be a more opportune time.
Because we're having pasta for tea.
Yes.
And we won't have to have the dodgy gluten-free that we don't really like pasta if it does come. If you don't know the difference between spelt and sort of modern wheats, spelt is an ancient grain, and in fact the Roman soldiers used to carry it in their packs, and then they would then grind it up and then turn it, they'd make bread. And it does contain gluten, but the gluten breaks down in water. It's very soluble. It's not like normal gluten in your modern wheats. So because of that, people who find they have a bit of an intolerance to normal wheat can tolerate it perfectly fine. So we will see. It'll be great, if it's brilliant, because then I can make pasta salads with it and things. It'll be fantastic.
Beautiful.
I can't wait.
What a 2 weeks we've had, ladies and gentlemen, because 7 years ago we broadcast our very first show.
Gosh.
6 years ago, with the support of you, our just amazing audience, this became our job.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was no plans for us to produce a magazine.
No.
All we did was we produced, I think it was a 6-page newsletter called the Bakery Bear News. And newsflash, for all you Bakery Bear patrons who are in the Bakery Bear Patrons private Facebook group, those Bakery Bear News are still there. So if you go into files, they're all there and you can download them. Bakery Bear News became something that our patrons just loved. And so after another one of my many operations, we decided that it would be fun to start a little magazine. And Knitability arrived. That was in 2017. And over the last few years, gradually, it's grown and grown and grown, and it's now become a real cornerstone of what we do. And to say that I had no experience in editing
would be true.
Now look, I stand by.
Look, you did a brilliant job with it, I think.
It's all positioning things and putting the right things in the right places and all of those elements of stuff. It's not that I find it hard. I'm just not very good at it. So I have to work quite hard to produce anything that looks remotely any good. So to say that we're excited about now having an editor for Knitability would be an understatement.
Yes.
I think I don't know about UK, but I feel it's such a lovely thing every issue there's an interview with a designer, and we've had some wonderful designers over the years. Ohi Locatelli and Susan B. Anderson, and the lovely lady who makes the little cotton rabbits.
Yes, Julie Williams.
And so many, and Jen Staingast, and so many just wonderful interviews. But also we interview a maker as well. Yeah. So it might be a bag maker, it might be a yarn dyer, and again, some really, most recently, the issue that's just come out, it's with the lovely Jess from Loom.
Yes.
Who, of course,
Loom Wool.
you love.
Yes, and I'll be showing you something that I've knit with her yarn later, actually.
Yeah. But then each issue you also get an article from me and from Kay, but then also you get articles from Bakery Bear patrons too, and they could be about a whole range of things. And it was sort of low down on my priority list just because, with the editing and the planning and the filming and all the things that we do, because our ethos has always been, our goal has always been to produce really high quality content, video content and audio content for all of our subscribers. And, whilst Knitability is so important to us, it never really was part of that initial, but it just became something. So now to finally have someone is just so lovely that, her name is Jen, and she's marvellous.
She is wonderful.
Yes. Already in one issue, you said it was so funny.
It's so pretty.
Yes. She's like, you can tell that a lady has done this, not some.
She has a great background.
I was going to say Butch gentleman. Yeah, Jen actually knows about design. Unlike me. So, to have Jen, and it just makes me so happy to think that there's someone now who is championing Knitability and driving it forward. A few people, when we announced it, they were a little bit worried that we weren't going to be doing all the things we've been doing. Of course we are. Jen's job is to edit Knitability. All the things which I was rubbish at, she's brilliant at. As she's already proved, and I know she's got some wonderful ideas. Yeah. Issue 29 is out right now. Jen did the most wonderful job. She did. And do you know, it's been a really interesting I felt nervous, and I felt
anything change-wise is very nerve-wracking, isn't it?
I think because it's been just you and me for so long, to now have someone else working with us. And the wonderful thing about, there's so many challenging things about the world that we live in, but one of the positives about the world that we live in is because of how technology works, we can work with literally anybody anywhere in the world, and that's just marvellous to think.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
It is. So Jen is the new editor for Knitability. You can meet her yourself. Yeah. She's written a lovely little, the very first editor's letter.
Intro to her.
Yes. In issue 29 of Knitability, which is out right now. Look, that's enough waffling.
Very much waffle this morning.
Because if you are interested in socks and garments, you've come to the right place.
This is the show for you.
So without further ado, it's time. And all of you can probably guess who's going to be showing the garments and who's going to be showing the socks. Let's see if you're right. Let's see if you're right. As I say for the first time today, Kay Jones. The first and only time today.
I was going to say, you're going to say it again.
Kay Jones.
Only if you mess up.
What's on your needles?
Okay, so the first thing is a garment. No, it's not.
She caught me out then.
Did I?
Yeah.
No, it's not a garment.
That's not what we discussed in the production meeting.
The first thing on my needles is a sock. However, it's not what you'll be expecting from a normal sock on my needles. Would that be true?
I don't know what you're talking about, so I'll just agree.
This.
Okay.
That's not what you would expect, is it?
It is not.
So, this project came out of the fact that this year I really wanted to make Bryony's advent calendar really special. I know it's only March, however, I really wanted to get ahead of the game and get working on something, and because it's sort of like a little long-term project. It's little things in a long-term project. You'll understand when I show you. But what I wanted to do was make a little sock garland. Now, I do have a pattern already, which is a free pattern, and I've got it here in one of Bryony's books. So I put out this little free pattern, gosh, probably a couple of years ago now, and it's called A Bookmark for Dobby. And it's a little tiny sock, as you can see, that can be used as a bookmark. So this is available, anyone can download it and make little socks if they want to. Now, I could have used my pattern for this, however, I really wanted to have something that was a little bit quicker to knit and also a tiny bit bigger. Also, I wanted to be able to hang it. This doesn't have a hanging loop at all. So I wanted to change it slightly. And this one, as you can see, has got a little heel flap and gusset, which is just so cute. But I wanted, and that, even though that's tiny, it is more time consuming than other types of heels. So I wanted to address that. I wanted to address the hanging loop thing, and I wanted to make it a tiny bit bigger, just so that you can put something small in here, but just in case I wanted to put something in that was just a bit bigger than like a single chocolate or something. So I started to tackle this issue. Let me put that back in the book. And it's still slightly a work in progress, but I'm getting there. So I've just got a bag full of lovely coloured minis in there that I'm working with. So I started this off without addressing the hanging loop and just thinking about the heel. So I first of all knit this tiny sock and I put in an afterthought heel. I used my umbrella afterthought heel method and just designed a little heel that would fit into this sock. I really like it. However, I'm thinking about people enjoying knitting these, and I loved knitting it, but I love knitting the umbrella heel, and I know lots of you do as well. However, I know that some people are a bit reluctant with afterthought heels, find them a bit intimidating. Even on a tiny sock, I think you find it a bit intimidating. So I thought, right, okay, can I do this a different way? But this is the first tiny little sock that I made. Isn't it cute? And it's got this little umbrella heel, which actually I think came out a bit big. It looks a bit big for the sock, but it just allowed me to look
I'm not convinced it does look a bit big.
I don't know.
For the sock.
I think it might look a bit big. I don't know.
I think the problem is when you go down in size, when you make one that fits the sock, because it's small, it looks too small.
It looks, yeah, I mean, look, and at the end of the day, this is purely decorative. It doesn't have to be a working sock, if you know what I mean. It's not going to be used as a sock.
Unless you put it on a teddy, of course.
Unless you put it on a teddy, which...
But I don't think Teddy's going to complain about the fit of his heel.
No, I don't think so. I think he would be cool with that.
Yes.
And also, I knit the foot a bit. It looks like it's a bit short to me, the foot. I wanted to be a bit longer. And I just used a bigger size needle so that it would come out a little bit bigger. But I hadn't done anything about the hanging loop at this stage. So that was the first process. So then I started to think about the hanging loop and the heel. And can I do it any other way? So the heel, now I spent probably far too much time thinking about a tiny heel in a tiny sock. However, it did turn out well because I came across a method.
To say that there were sleepless nights.
Oh, I can't.
It's true.
I honestly could not stop thinking about this tiny heel in a tiny sock. Now, I did try.
To be fair, though, Kay, this is you with any design.
Well, it is. I was like a dog with a bone. I really am like a dog with a bone. I can't think about anything else.
But that's cool.
Yeah,
and I think all of us have our foibles, and I think that it's so important that you just accept. And actually, when you feed your brain in that way, you're a more...
I was kind of happy to be obsessed by it, because it's a nice thing to be obsessed by, isn't it? It's not like your brain is full of nonsense.
No.
For me, it's a good thing for my brain to be full of. So yes, I spent ages looking at heels, and I did try out a German short row heel. I've already done a wrap and turn heel actually in one of my designs. It's called the Dandelion Socks, which was a platinum design. So I've already done a wrap and turn heel. But again, I know that wrap and turn sort of short rows are not people's favourite, and I know German short rows are very popular, and I did try that. But I didn't personally love knitting it myself, and I thought, well, I'm going to be knitting a lot of these. I need to enjoy it myself. is there any other way I can produce something that looks like a short row heel but doesn't use short rows? And I came across a method that actually uses decreases and then increases. I thought, this looks brilliant. So I tried it and it didn't quite work. So I've changed loads of elements of it. And now I think it works. So, and I also went up in the stitch count. I thought, does it need to have a few more stitches? So I did that as well. And I figured out the hanging loop. So this was my next one. And can you see the little heel? That isn't a short row heel. It's like a pretend short row, I suppose. But it's really quick. It's really easy. And you can do a contrast heel with it. I'll show you my next one. You can do it with contrast yarn. However, this sock I think is too big. If you look at this against this, I don't know, it wasn't cute enough. It wasn't small and cute enough. But can you see my lovely hanging loop?
Yeah.
It's an I-cord.
And it's part of the sock, isn't
and
it?
it's integrated in. Ooh. It's not separate. I've just worked out how to have a beautiful I-cord loop without having to knit it separately. So it's all part of the sock. This is Easter Sprinkles, actually, this colour.
But of course she died.
Yeah, this is the actual skein I dyed last time. Isn't it lovely? So I really liked this heel, so I thought, right, okay, I'm going to have another go. And this time I'm going to try it with a contrast colour, going back to my original stitch count that I liked, with my hanging loop. And I really like this, however, I knit the foot too long this time. So all I've got to do to change now this into what will be...
You think that foot is too long?
I think it's a bit too long. So this is my final sort of attempt. Do you think that foot... I think it's a smidge too long. In proportion, literally a couple of rows here. You know, before the toe. I think it just needs to have a couple of rows less. But the little heel is really cute.
Do you know what this is reminding me of? We just watched The Aviator, which we watched a few years ago and loved, and we watched it again with our daughter Bryony, who loved it too. Yeah. And Howard Hughes, when he was designing the spruce goose, they call it, but the Hercules, he was like obsessing over the steering wheel.
Oh, he was.
You're obsessing over 2 rows on a tiny sock.
No, yeah, you're right, but
it's brilliant.
But I know that it needs those 2 rows less, and then I'm sure it'll be right. But you know, I love the little hanging loop being integrated. I think that's brilliant. The heel works for me. You know, it's just decorative. It doesn't need to function. It's just decorative.
What inspires me about you is, if you're going to do something, it needs to be as perfect as you can make it.
Well, there's no point doing it for me if you're not going to do it as well as you possibly can.
And that is my ethos on life.
Yeah. I even sort of worked out a way of picking up a stitch in the gap when you've completed the heel and you join back in the round. There was a bit of a gap and I didn't like that. So I worked out a way of picking up a stitch and it really closed up the gap beautifully. So... you know, I will put video tutorials in this.
What do you mean you will put video tutorials in this? You're going to release this as a pattern?
Well, my idea... yeah, well, I want... you know, I did this initially just for me, and my idea is I want to knit 24 of these and have them as like a lovely... sort of like a bunting, really. Because I'm not... you know, I'm going to knit them in all... I wanted to knit them in all really pretty colours. Not particularly festive. You know, none of these are particularly festive, I don't think.
But they could be.
But they could be. But I really wanted it to be something that I could bring out at other times of year as well. You know, it might be... Easter, or it might be that you want to give your child like a little advent running up to their birthday.
What about an autumnal one with all autumnal colours?
Yeah, you know, so it's not just... Or a summer one.
You could have one for every season.
Well, you could, but it's not just for Christmas, which is why I think of it more as a bunting than as a sort of advent thing. So yeah, I wanted to knit 24 of these, and I wanted the little sock to be big enough to pop something in there. You know, there's plenty of room in there. You could stuff something in there, even if it's just like a little Lego minifigure or a pencil eraser and a pencil sharpener, or anything just small like that will happily fit in there, and it hangs. So there's lots of options with you having the hanging loop. You could, if you were going to do it at Christmas, you could just hang them all over your tree, couldn't you? And that would be lovely. So yeah, my idea was I was just going to do this for me, but then I thought, do you know what I think I will do is have this as my September platinum pattern, because by releasing it in September, if you wanted to knit one for Advent, then you've got plenty of time to do that. It's only 5 grams of yarn. I weighed this, it's just 5 grams.
So it could be like a build-up.
It could be a
to
build-up.
the launch of the Bakery Bears Advent Calendar 2021.
It could be a build-up, but also I thought, because it's only 5 grams, you could easily knit one of these every day. You could actually use this as your Advent calendar, couldn't you? And you could knit one every day of Christmas, running up to Christmas, and build it up, and then you've got it for next year. There's lots and lots of options and ideas, but
Are you going to be putting any designs into them?
Yes, I am. At the minute, you can see these are just stocking stitch, but what I'm going to do, there'll be a little lace sock, there'll be a textured sock, and then I'm also going to do one with a little bit of colour work here at the cuff, so that there's 3 other options apart from just plain stocking stitch. So I think that, it's going to be really fun to knit. I've really, really enjoyed them. And I've got another one. I cast on another one last night. So I've got this one on the needles. And this one I'm using a bit of leftover of Clementine, a colourway that I dyed up, which is this gorgeously bright and fun sort of pinky orange. So I've got that one on the needles there. I've just almost completed the leg. And I'm going to I've found that the heel works best and neatest if you use a separate bit of yarn. So even if you were using the same colour yarn for the heel, I'll tell you in the pattern to just, at the beginning, just to wind off a gram or something of yarn and use that for the heel, because I find that produces a neater finish just because of where you can leave the working yarn before you start the heel, and then you can go back and pick up the working yarn and close those gaps really easily, whereas if you were carrying on with the contrast yarn, it's not quite as simple as that. But I'm really enjoying knitting these little socks. They're really, really cute. So I'll keep you sort of informed on my progress. I'm sure I'll have a few more to show next time for my little sock bunting. And how cute. So, yeah, it's really sweet. And this colourway here, the green, I dyed it actually, and I'm going to show you a full skein of it later, and I'll tell you why I dyed it. Dan Jones.
Yes.
What's on your needles?
Cool. Look, the first time I showed this, we put a call out for people to assist in the pronunciation, and I'm pretty sure the pronunciation should be Athmeli, but Athmeli means anniversary. And in the book which I'm using, the Lupin book which I showed you, I think it's 2 episodes ago, it's called anniversary. It's not even listed in the book as Athmeli. So I'm going to call this my anniversary sweater.
Yes,
because that's what it means in English anyway.
Yeah.
I'm English. So what does it look like? Well, I'll show you, because I've knit quite a bit.
Yeah.
Look, it's marvellous.
Oh, it's really nice.
So it is, of course,
the colours.
Yeah, it's the Lupin yarn, and this is Galaxy, and then I think it's just a white, isn't it?
It's just white, yeah.
And then this, what was the green called? Can you remember? Oh, the green is just phenomenal. And what's so wonderful about that green is how, you start with this and the Galaxy, at first glance you think, oh, it's black. Well, actually, it's not.
Oh, it's not.
There's so many different colours in there.
Oh, it's here, look.
And the green pulls out all the different shades of those colours. This on its own would become quite overpowering, and it would just perhaps feel just dark. But actually, as that accent, my goodness, it's marvellous. I've really enjoyed this so far, more actually than the Ridari, I think. And I think that an awful lot of that is because of how phenomenal this Galaxy colour is. It's just the type of thing, it's a bit like a really great hand-dyed yarn.
Can you see all the, there's a big speck of orange there, but there's loads of different colours in it.
I remember specifically knitting with the Kessel run, which was sent by Susie Gawley, who designed the bankhead and also the speargrass and loads of other wonderful designs. But I got some lovely hand-dyed yarn off her, and the sort of the enjoyment of knitting with that was seeing the colours change, and this is the same. This galaxy colour, it's like sometimes it's like dark blue, and then it might be a bit more brighter blue and a bit of purple and then a bit of green. It's just wonderful.
I've got the 3 colourway numbers here.
Cool.
So we've got 1706, 1707 and 0051. I'm not sure which way around those 3 colours are, but those are the 3.
I couldn't really speak much more highly of Lopi. It really is. Genuinely, it's tremendous and great fun to knit
look at
with.
that. There's a speck of blue and a speck of pink.
I know. I mean, things just appear that you just wouldn't expect, and it would sort of be a bit boring. It's so much better than the black that I used on the Radari, which just seemed to split all the time. This seems much more... It must have something to do with the way it's dyed.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a much more robust and strong. I mean, don't get me wrong, you still can't be yanking on it, because it would just break. But it's flown off, to be honest.
It's lovely. It's really nice. And that green, such a nice green. It's perfect for you.
Very much so. And I'm really looking forward to... I mean, it's funny to say. I am. Right at this stage, I'm looking forward to knitting through the body. And knitting through the body of the Radari was fine. You know, I know I speak about being bored with plain knitting sometimes. I think when you're working with really good quality yarn...
The yarn is everything for me.
And you know, it's not about cost.
No.
Remotely.
This is not expensive.
I mean, we've picked this up for a range of different prices, but between
about £3 for a ball, something like that. It's not expensive.
And how much is things like King Cole and...
Well, it depends, really. I mean, are these 50-gram balls?
I'm just trying to think in
50-gram balls.
In the sort of grand scheme of things, where does this fit?
About half the price, I would probably say.
Cole?
Of like if you were going to use a merino,
right?
50 grams of a commercial merino, you're probably talking £5 or £6 a ball, I would say.
So what this shows you is, on a very tight budget, you can economically knit a jumper.
You'll get a jumper that's going to last you a lifetime as well. I really feel like it will, and I think it will get better with wear and washing. And
it's tremendous to think that, you know...
so nice, that galaxy colourway.
In life, you do often get what you pay for, but actually, in this case, I'd pay twice the price.
Don't tell them that.
Well,
shh, don't tell the Lopi people that.
It's true, though.
It is true.
You know,
I'd love to go to Iceland and buy some Lopi in Iceland.
Well, looking at...
Iceland looks phenomenal.
Yeah, it does. We mentioned before about the New Lives in the Wild with Ben Fogle that we watched, that inspired me, you know, to want to knit more of these. Actually, I'm ashamed to say that I'm already eyeing up the next one. Again, I found it in the book that we showed you a couple of episodes back, the Lopi book, which Kay bought me. And there's another jumper in there. And for the first time ever, I sort of looked at a jumper. It doesn't have any detailing on the bottom. It just has a yoke. And I looked at it, and I said I don't like it quite like that. But if you take the bottom section of that detailing and stuck it on the bottom, it would be perfect. It would bring it together. Yeah. So that, for me, in the whole self-contained knitter journey, also as well, without even thinking about it, I started talking about yarn colours and what I might like to knit that third.
He's not even finished the first one yet, and he's talking about the third one.
Well, I'm hoping that the first one, the Radari that I cast on, I'm going to be showing that to you in a minute or two, and I'm hoping that not far to go on that, to be honest. But Afmeli, that's hard to say, so anniversary jumper, loving it, and really looking forward now to getting through that body and getting on with the old sleeves.
Yes.
What else is on your needles?
Well, I finished one of your... I haven't finished them entirely, but I have finished one of Dan's socks that I was working on. I finished it just last night, so I haven't even cast on the second one yet, but I'm going to do that today. Otherwise it just sits, doesn't it? I can't be doing with that. But these are the socks where I'm using the leftovers of the Boba Fett yarn. If you remember, I knit a pair of socks entirely out of this yarn for Dan. It's a Moustache Yarns colourway. And at the time it was called Boba Fett, but I think she might have had to have changed the names. But it's based on his uniform. No, that's the wrong word.
Well, it's
I
fine.
suppose his outfit that he wears. And I had about 16 grams of 2 balls, if you know what I mean, 2 16-gram leftovers. So I finished the first one. Oh, and then what I was doing was, so I was using the Boba Fett, and then I was also using a skein of yarn that was given to us as a Christmas present from Sherry Iris to Dan. And this is like a sort of R2D2-y blue, I think. So I was using those two together. And I finished a sock. Here it is. I think it looks great, actually. I think the blue looks like Boba Fett flying through the sky. Don't you think?
Yeah, it does. That looks huge.
It's just the normal that I do for you. And now I need to measure it now you've said that.
But I do find it funny after you...
They always look huge.
But after you spoke about the little socks that you're knitting...
I need to go under the tree.
You're looking at the little socks and you're saying, oh, that doesn't look quite right. Well, if you knit the little socks, if you scaled that down...
Yeah.
Well, that's substantially longer, isn't it, than the foot that you said is too long?
Well, it is, but you're weird, aren't you? Now I need to measure it. No, look. Your foot's 12.5 inches long.
Right.
And this measures about 11.5.
And that's how long they normally are?
Yeah. And I've done it exactly the same number of rounds that I always do for your socks.
Yeah, well, it's not like you've not knit a few pairs of socks, is it?
No, I know, but you just got me panicked then. I think it looks particularly ridiculously long because the leg isn't very long because it's a shorty.
Yeah.
I really like the look of the Boba Fett and the sort of sky bluey.
And what it does is it uses up that Boba Fett yarn brilliantly, which is marvellous. And also with it being on the top too, that really sort of pokes out and says, hello.
It's the bit that's most going to be seen, isn't it? Because this will be in your shoe.
You're right with the sky bit.
Yeah.
It actually, you could say that it is reminiscent of the Empire Strikes Back at Cloud City, because it's obviously up in the sky, set in the clouds.
Yeah, but I was pleased with how much I could get out of the 16 grams. It runs right from the start here to good way down the foot. If it was a normal sock on a normal person, you would have got, a good... You might have even got...
How long has that Boba Fett been sat in your stash?
Oh, ages. Since I finished those socks. I knit those socks for you, I think, in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
So I've had the leftovers in there for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I wanted to use it, and I'd rather use it in some, a pair of socks like this that you're going to wear and you're going to love than stick it into scrappy projects.
Yeah.
I really didn't want to do that because it was such a special yarn.
I do find that so sort of wonderful to think that you knitted those in 2017 and it sat there waiting.
Yeah, well, I do like to do that.
Sprung forth.
If there's a special yarn, then I will do that.
The bases feel...
They're the same.
Okay.
They're exactly the same. Yeah, it's just 75-25. So that's why I knew pairing, the blue with the hand-dyed, though they're both hand-dyed, but with the self-striping one would work. But I think it's quite cool. I think it looks cool.
It's very cool, and it's cool to think that...
It's not been blocked.
It's sort of amazing, really, that Sherry's obviously dyeing yarn in the UK and Moustache is obviously dyeing yarn in America.
Yeah.
And still the base.
It's the same base, yeah, and I think it's great that I've put those two together, I think it's brilliant, isn't it, that we can get these yarns from all over the world and...
But they'll...
work
gel together.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed knitting it, so I'm definitely going to get the second one on the needles today. And I always use 72 stitches for Dan's socks, and I'm using 2.25mm. I do sometimes use 2.5mm, but you seem to prefer these days the more sucky in fabric.
Yeah.
With 2.25.
I do like it quite sucky.
Quite sucky.
Yes. And what needles are you using to knit these?
Oh, now, yes, this is the thing. No, these are just Chowgu mini twists that I always use. You know, the one with the really fine cable. And these are interchangeables. However, my next sock I'm going to show you, because it's a thicker sock, I'm using for that just Chowgu fixed red lace. And I realised something about them. The difference between the fixed and the minis is that for me, and you can see it quite clearly on this sock actually, I do get a little magic loop sort of line down here. Now it does block out, you can see it there, look. It's not a loose stitch, it's a tighter stitch. And I suddenly realised that I know exactly why that's happening, because it wasn't happening when I was using the red lace. It's because this cable is so much thinner on the mini twists, and I don't know why this didn't dawn on me at all, really, until that point. Because what happens when you, on Magic Loop, obviously, what happens is when you go to your front needle, you know, you pull out your back needle.
Drops onto the cord.
It drops, you know, the stitches drop onto the cord, and then as you work that first stitch, it's tightening up that last stitch.
Obviously.
To the dimensions of the cord. Of course it's doing that, and it just never dawned on me. And I don't pull tight, you know, I am aware not to pull too tight, but I think it's kind of inevitable that that's going to happen.
Yeah. So what are you going to do?
Well, I might try, I always used to use fixed red lace for knitting socks, always, until these came out, and then I switched. So I think the next pair of socks that I knit, and I might even pull it out for the second sock of this, I think it'd be a good comparison.
Yeah, I think it would.
To pull out a fixed circular red lace, which has got the thicker cord, and just see the difference. And I never have a problem with this line not blocking out. It always blocks out.
So,
but
there's a lot to unpack here, Kay.
There is, isn't there? So I feel like I've done lots of thinking, haven't I?
But there is. Don't.
Am I overthinking?
Don't let me. No. This is important stuff. You've identified that knitting with
Chowgu mini twists,
you're getting a line down your socks because it is tightening as you're working the stitch.
Yeah, because it tightens
Obviously,
to the thickness of the cable.
Yes. So if you now knit the second sock
with
and
it
just because you've been talking for a while about this line and about you not being happy about it, it's been on your mind.
I'm wondering if I really never used to get it,
and I'm
only getting it because I've been using these needles. So that's why I think it'll be a good.
I do. So let's jump forward in time. You've knitted the second sock. There's no line. Are you going to stop using those needles?
No, probably not.
Why?
Because they're just so lovely to use. That cable is just so nice. But let's just see how I feel about it when I've knit the next sock on a fixed.
Right.
And see how I feel about...
So what you're having to weigh up here is, okay, you want a cable which is lovely to work with.
Yeah.
But to get a cable that's lovely to work with, it's going to be smaller, which is then going to mean that it's going to slightly affect your end product. And whilst after blocking, it looks fine.
It does, yeah.
What you have to do is you have to weigh up, is it worth the sort of...
Because I think as well, it also, I think the blocking thing, I think it really also depends on a stitch pattern, because I have sometimes done a patterned sock, and depending on the stitch pattern, it's not with every patterned sock, but depending on the stitch pattern, I'm talking about a particular pair of socks recently, I was bothered by it, and it was vastly improved with blocking, and really it was imperceptible, but I felt like there was still a tiny issue with that.
And I think if you plant that seed in your head,
I know
that it's just not worth planting that seed. Life is too short to plant that seed. The question is going to be, after you've knitted with the other needles, is if the experience is enjoyable. This is something that needs.
Well, I always used to absolutely love the Chowgu red lace fixed.
Yes.
And I knit with them all the time for socks.
Yes. So
there's no reason I wouldn't enjoy it. So thank you for reminding me that, and I'm going to dig one out soon, straight after we've recorded.
I do think it's really important.
I'll cast on with that.
It's a really important point and it's something that, needs analysing and working through.
And this could be different for all knitters because all knitters are different, aren't they?
Well, it's going to come down to...
So everyone's different.
It's going to come down to the way you work your gauge. I can tell you something. If I knitted socks with those, I know I've loosened up.
But I'd
have an absolute nightmare.
Obviously, this is for Magic Loop. It's not a case for... It's not an issue at all with double points.
No, of course not.
Your stitches are always on the needle.
Exactly, yes.
So you're not going to...
They always will be because I don't like knitting socks on Magic Loop. But if I did... I think I'd have a real issue with this.
Yeah, I mean, I find with double points, because it's not your stitches that are affected, it's the yarn in between your stitches, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's where you can get actual ladders. And you don't get, you couldn't get the same line, I don't think, if you were working on double points. It would be a different type of laddering with double points. So...
Lovely.
Now that's enthused me now to cast on the second sock because I'm curious. It's got my curiosity up.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm an idiot. Finally, I have produced nearly another sleeve.
Where's the third one? You've got that somewhere, haven't you?
This may be the third sleeve I've knitted.
I think it might be.
Look, I made a schoolboy error.
Where's the body?
We don't need the body.
We do, I want to see.
They'll see the body next time because this is about to be finished. And this time I've got it right, I hope. I knitted a second sleeve and I'm getting towards the end of the second sleeve and I'm counting my stitches and I'm thinking I'm way off here. Have I missed? I'm really sat there pondering, I must have missed increases, but how can I have missed increases? I'm sure I haven't, and I'm looking back down the line and I'm counting the increases. And then I thought, okay, I'll try it on. So here is the proper size sleeve. And here is the sleeve which I knitted. So I'm there.
Trying to get it on your arm.
And I could just get it on. But it really is like a second skin. Because this is the child size.
It's like one of those medieval...
Yes. Yeah.
Armoury things,
or
isn't it?
One of those leather sleeves that falconers wear.
Oh, yes, it does,
yeah.
yes.
I'm not certain this would be too good for having a bird come and land on your arm. I think it might hurt a little bit. No. I knitted the child size.
You knitted the smallest size.
But no. The reason I'm an idiot is because I cast on the child size, but then started doing the increases for the correct size.
Right.
So it wasn't like I cast on the child size and then continued knitting the child size. I cast on the child size and then started doing the increases for the adult size, which is probably the reason why I can get it on my arm.
Yeah.
I mean, what a total idiot. So I had to redo the whole thing. And here it is.
Which is brilliant, because he didn't complain about it at all. You just got on with it.
It is, of course, the Ridari.
And there is another one exactly like this.
Yeah, that's in the other bag. And I'm what am I on? I think I'm around, I've got to get to 122 and I'm on 98.
Oh, right.
So I'm really not far. This is probably a couple of nights' work away from being done. And then it's going to be time to join
in the round.
And then it's going to be time to do the yoke.
Yes.
The excitement, let me tell you, is absolutely palpable because I'm looking forward to wearing this one the most out of everything. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the green one, but this one, this is the one with the handsome guy stood on the docks with a rope on his shoulder. Does it fit you? Kind of.
It's too tight for how I like it, but if it's a child size, I mean, I'm not a child size, am I? But I can get it on my arm.
Yeah.
But, I understand what you mean about this yarn, but it's quite scratchy, isn't it?
I can... Look, I'm creating these jumpers not for me to wear sat here at home.
No.
I'm creating these jumpers for me to put on when I'm out walking.
Be brilliant.
It will be phenomenal because in the sort of autumn time, I think I'll be able to just
You
go
can
out
just
with
go
that
out
on.
with a jumper on and you'll be perfectly warm.
In the winter, I think all I'll need is a jumper and a body warmer.
Yeah.
And I honestly
so.
believe that I'll be fine. Because that dude that we saw, again, harking back to the New Lives in the Wild with Ben Fogle, well, that's hard to say.
Yeah.
He was out on the side of like a mountain with one of these jumpers on, not exactly one of these jumpers on, but a Icelandic
It was clearly
colourwork.
a Lopi jumper
Yes.
he was wearing, yeah.
And he had a jumper on and a really light body warmer. And that excites
And Ben's got like 5 layers of
Yeah.
industrial strength. Yeah.
Stuff. So my idiocy was sort of quite fun because now I have, a lovely spare.
Well, we could have ripped that out and started, but I said, well, look, you've got an extra ball of yarn anyway, so let's just leave that. If we need it, we can unravel it.
Yeah. The colours are marvellous.
Colours are lovely.
It's just like...
It's not a flat colour, is it?
You just want to hug it.
Yeah, it's just... They're lovely, the colours.
I mean, it smells nice too.
Does it?
It does smell a tiny bit sheepy, but, that's
smells like
fine.
your aftershave.
Well, I
That's
just
all
shoved it
can
on my
smell.
face.
No, I can't smell anything.
So that's
but
probably the reason why. Look, they
Smells
don't
like
look like
Chanel.
you've just... Oh dear, look at the heels.
Yes, well, my next pair came about because poor Bryony, she came to me one weekend day, I think it was, in the afternoon, and she got one sock in her hand like this and one was still on her foot, and she just went, look what's happened. I was like, what's happened? And she showed me this sock, and it's one of her very favourite pairs, and look what's happened to the heel. It's completely blown out. And the other heel is also extremely thin. And I looked at it and she said, can you fix it? And I said, do you know what, darling? I'm going to struggle because it's the entire heel. Can you see? Oh, there we go. Oh, it's like a little face. Hello. It's just completely gone. The entire heel's completely gone. And the other one, I'll show you what the socks are in a second, but the other heel is also extremely threadbare. So that one is about to go as well. Now to be fair, she's had these for probably 3 years, if not more. And that's the socks. And these are one of her favourite pairs because it's my Lupin colourway, based on lovely Remus Lupin, and it's greys for his werewolfy incarnation, and then it's got this lovely bright blue and bright green, black. I can't say it. Bright blue and bright green. I did it. Because in the film, his eyes change, don't they? When he's changing to a werewolf, his eyes change from blue to green, I think it is. So that was how I came out with the colours. And she loves these socks. And she also particularly loves them because they're thicker. I knit these with a sport weight. It's 100% BFL sport weight. And that's exactly why the heel's blown out. It's because it's BFL and it's not got any nylon in it. So what I said to her was, I said, look, honey, rather than trying to fix this and it going again, I know that I've got a skein of Lupin still in my stash. It's fingering weight, but what I can do is double it and make you another pair. Would that be okay? And she was cool with that. So I had to start another pair of socks, didn't I? So this is an 80-20 fingering weight. It's the one that's a 2-ply high twist. So doubling that, I thought this will be nice and strong. And it's also going to be thicker, actually, than the sport weight, because she only wears these really around the house. It's more like slipper socks. But here's the first one. Now you can see this colour is much more saturated, actually, than this. But she didn't seem to mind, because these have been washed loads and loads in the washer, I've got to say as well. They've been bunged in the washer. But I think this one did have a lot more blue in it than the other. But you can see it has got the green and the grey. She wasn't bothered. She knew it was Lupin still. So I've completed one sock. I did offer to put a pattern in there, but she said, no, I just want them plain like the other ones. So I used 48 stitches. I actually followed my Choose Your House socks, which is a design it's a DK weight socks with a lovely texture pattern in it. So I followed the pattern for this with the size medium, and I just missed off the texture pattern. But everything else is just as the pattern was. And so yeah, I got one sock done. I actually knit through to about here on the first day. It was really quick. You know, the socks are so quick with just 48 stitches. You fly through them. And then the rest of it took me a few days because I was just doing them when we were watching Downton at night time. But I've got one finished and the other one is on the needles. Only just, but it is. Now this is where I'm using a Chowgoo fixed. Can you see the cable's much thicker? And if you look at this sock, you know, the line normally would be down here. These haven't been blocked. And there's really nothing. It would be down here and up here. And there's really nothing. So this is what made me just have that kind of light bulb moment. And I think the cord, I'm using 3.25mm, but I'm pretty certain the cord is the same thickness on the smaller sizes. I mean, I'll double check that, but I think it is. So that's why I want to try the experiment that we just spoken about. I just noticed such a difference. It just looks so neat and there's not an inkling of any tightening of stitches. And it's just because the cord is so much thicker than the mini twists. So I've got one lovely sock finished and I'm going to try and whiz through that second one to get them done for her so that she can wear them, you know, as soon as. But she's happy that I'm knitting them. She's not in any great rush. She's got like 60 pairs of socks. And I'm not exaggerating. So it's not a problem. But I'm just happy that I can replace them for her. I just happen to have this skein in my stash.
Thank goodness. Just like my Boba Fett.
Thank goodness,
too.
I know. This is why having a stash is so good, isn't it? Because you can just go, I've got that yarn.
But what you need is a quality stash.
You do.
But that's for another day.
That's a story for another day, because I'm addressing something today that's been bugging me, and I'll talk about that next time when I've done the addressing.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this year we began walking the moors, and whilst our first walk on the moors at Halton was absolutely marvellous, we didn't really get up onto the moor properly. So this time we're not going to get up onto just one moor, we're going to go on to two.
Oh, it's great.
And because it's spring, there's every chance that we're going to see lots of lovely flowers poking their heads through, and also, if we're lucky, we might get to see some rather special wildlife. So enough talk and more action as we once again go walking the moors. Welcome everyone to a brand new season of walks. Over the next few months we'll be undertaking 5 hikes in the Yorkshire Dales and 5 hikes in the North York Moors.
We're going to be walking through a landscape I've spent the last 35 years exploring, and I can't wait to share with you some of my favourite destinations and the stories that surround them.
From mysterious castles to beautiful forests and long-forgotten villages, in this series we're going to undertake some wonderful adventures. But where are we heading today?
Welcome, everyone, to the North York Moors National Park. We're just on the outskirts of the absolutely beautiful Hutton Village, and to say that I'm excited about this walk would be an understatement. We've come to a part of the moors which I've never visited, but what makes it so special is the amount of historical points of interest that there are on the map. Along today's route there are Bronze Age cairns, prehistoric field systems, loads of medieval boundary stones. But most importantly, we're going to be getting up high today onto some proper moorland, and so with a bit of luck we should see some absolutely breathtaking wildlife. But what I can guarantee you are some stunning views. Just take a look at this. What constantly surprises me are the secrets which lay hidden on our doorsteps, because about 20 years ago I used to live about 2 miles from here. What's helped me unlock all of this is the Ordnance Survey maps which I used to plan these treks. Without it I wouldn't be here today, and it's clearly quite a popular spot, so I'm really getting more and more excited as to the sights that we're going to see. Now, along today's walk we're going to take in the mysterious Blue Lake Wood. We're then going to climb up onto Hutton Moor and then make our way across onto its much bigger brother, Gisborough Moor, before we then climb down off the moors and take in the sights. I'm told they're absolutely gorgeous, of Hutton Village, which lays just at the end of this road, before we finish off our walk back here at the car. I think it's time I shut up, because this is going to be quite the trek today. I've packed lots of provisions, so I think it's time that we once again went walking the moors. Now, don't let this short stretch of road walking fool you. Today's walk is going to be wild and muddy. This is actually the main road heading into Hutton Village, which we're going to explore later. But right now, it's time for us to leave the roads behind and start climbing. I'm going to make a prediction. The cowl and the gloves and the hat may not last very long. Now, I know we're aiming for the skies today, literally, but this is really quite the gradient. We've literally just stepped off the path. I think it's going to be fun, folks. Talk about walking through the seasons. My goodness, the first 3 episodes of this series of walks have taken us through pretty much everything. Even just consider last time when it was knee deep in snow and so cold. Now, just a few weeks later, and everything's changed. There's much more warmth in the air. The birds are singing, and the flowers are just beginning to spring forth after their long winter hibernation. It sounds romantic, doesn't it? Blue Lake Woods. You imagine a gorgeously blue lake nestled between the trees. Sadly not. It's a reservoir. It dates from the Industrial Revolution, so, well, a bit just after that, 1880. And the reservoir used to power machinery at a farm down at the bottom of the hill. And alum salts would leak into the reservoir and would make it look blue, so it became known as Blue Lake. Now, it's long since stopped being used, and it's actually all silted up now, so it's not very blue, but its name lives on in the infinitely more picturesque and beautiful Blue Lake Woods. And if I've read my map right, we're going to be walking straight past one of those cairns today. Now, many of you might be wondering, what exactly is a cairn? Well, I'll tell you. About 4,200 years ago, human beings started to settle down in one place. Prior to that, we would move around. We were more hunter-gatherers. And when they settled down, we obviously built places to live, but we also needed to build places to bury our dead, because obviously where we live is where we want to bury our dead as well. So what our ancestors started to do, certainly here in the north of England, is they would build either round or more commonly oval-shaped communal burials that they would then bury their dead in. Once that communal burial was full, they would seal it up and they'd pick another spot and they'd build a new circular or oval-shaped communal burial, and so the process would go on and on. So because of that, there are cairns all over the country. Now, many of them have been ploughed away, or just through, the expanse of modern day society have been removed. But loads of them still remain in our national parks. And if I've planned this walk right, we're going to walk straight by one of those cairns today. Ladies and gentlemen, we've made it. Welcome to Hutton Moor. Oh yes, it's very exciting. It's our first official moor of the season. Now, this is a really ancient landscape, and it should be giving just over my shoulder the absolutely best view ever of a place that I know really well, but it's not because of the clouds. Because just literally over the moor is Rosebery Topping. It really is an example of how ancient a landscape this has been for so many thousands of years. So we're making our way across Hutton Moor on our way to Gisborough Moor, which I can actually see in the distance. It's much bigger. This is really quite small and sort of cute. Lots of heather, and I can hear curlews. Hopefully we might see one or two. Gorgeous birds, I love them. Now, we're looking for something called black nab. And a nab is something which you'll see an awful lot of if you look on an Ordnance Survey map of England. And a nab is actually a shortened name for a rocky outcrop. So if you see anything on a map that says nab, then you know what you're going to find when you get to it is some sort of rocks. And the black is just descriptive of the stones of the rocks, which are slap bang on the top of black nab. Let's see, actually you can see straight away. I mean, look, the earth is really black. Clearly we can see the reason why black nab's got its name. There's something going on in the soil which is making everything look really quite dark. So black nab is our next stop, and hopefully it's not too far. We'll see if we can find it. The Cleveland Way is actually outstanding because it's a really well managed path, and moorland can be pretty boggy, and because in the really tricky sections there's flagstones for me to walk on, like right here, it sort of means I can skip over the parts that would normally slow me down quite a lot. Now, not only is it really well maintained, but also it takes in all this wonderful moorland, but then it picks up the Yorkshire coastline and it runs right the way down the coast. Now, I'd love to walk the full 109 miles. Wow. I think I'd be pretty tired after that walk. But for us today, it's just a short hop on the Cleveland Way because we're on the hunt for a rather impressive looking cairn. folks, somewhere down here is the cairn that we've been looking for. So whilst I check my map and make sure we're on the right path, you go off, get warm, have a little break, and I'll see you later on in the show for more Walking the Moors.
What a walk, everyone, and we're only halfway there. Did you see that northern lapwing?
Oh, wasn't that fantastic?
I've never
Doesn't it
seen
make
anything
the most
like that before in
amazing
my life.
voice, call, whatever you would call it.
Well, its call is outstanding, and actually it is also known sometimes as a peewit because of that call. Because, you know, peewit supposedly sounds a little bit like
what it's saying.
what it's saying. But the other thing I found fascinating is if you listen to it, you can hear its wings lapping. Hence the name Northern Lapwing, which I sort of love that.
It's a beautiful bird. Close up, because you showed me pictures.
That's right.
Oh my goodness, it's such a beautiful bird.
It's a bit like the Galaxy
It's
Colouway.
like it's iridescent. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
I've never seen one of those before in my life, and the thing that it was doing, and I tried to capture it as much as I could, it was like spiralling downwards. And it must have been doing that to catch bugs or whatever, because it was like swooping up, coming down, and then flying up around. Just outstanding.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness. But you know, there's so many other, there was curlews up there as well, but we've seen those before on Walking the Dales. So remember we saw those when we walked at Midlam last year, which were marvellous. And I mean, curlews are great fun, but you know, they're nowhere near as exciting as a northern lapwing.
No.
And my goodness, literally we have only just begun, because when we come back, will we get to this? I mean, for so many years, if you look on the Ordnance Survey map of Great Britain, you will see cairns. They're literally all over the place. And I've never managed to actually get to one before. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm really looking forward to getting up right onto the top of that moor and seeing if we can spot it. Oh yes. But that's all to come later on in the show. Because right now, it's time for us to find out. Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
I do have a couple of things. And the first is Bryony's scarf. I finished it. Oh, look at the tassels.
Wow.
She's actually been wearing this for the past week and a half because she's back to school now.
I love the sparkles.
Wonderful. And she's been wearing it, so I had to say to her last night, oh, I need your scarf tomorrow. Can you wear one of your others? And she was, yeah, that's fine. So there it is. So BTS inspired, all dyed by me and knit by me and tasselled by me. So that's fun. What's happened to that tassel? That's just stuck up.
The colours look marvellous.
They do, don't they? I'm pleased with it, actually. I didn't know whether some of them might be a bit jarring, like that green, but there are some brighter ones, so I think it sort of balances it. It's 12 different colours, all inspired by lovely BTS.
I do think there's something to be said too about the sparkles not being in every colourway.
Yes.
I think that really works well, because then as you look across it, there's like different things draw your eye.
2, 3, I think 4 of them have got sparkles in.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that's the type of thing which I think you could get over enthusiastic about and think, oh, sparkles are so marvellous, you know, I'll have them on everything.
Yeah.
But it's less is more.
Less is more.
It's always the case.
And I wish sparkles would come across. There's some in this yellow here, the gold, but they just
Well, as we
very
found,
rarely do. There's some in the pink.
As we found, filming in 4K last episode, the sparkles were coming.
Yeah, and I did take a picture actually that I posted on Instagram, and you could see the sparkles in a yarn that I was knitting with. It was the green yarn that I showed you last time. You could see the sparkles. So I think sometimes, depending on your camera, you can see them, can't you?
Yes.
But yeah, that's all finished. I'm so glad it's done. Actually, I was ready to be done. And it's a great length, because they do, I find that scarves do stretch long ways as well, just with the weight of wearing them. They do stretch, and this one I think has already stretched a little bit. Oh, I had a disaster last night though with it, didn't I? I noticed when I picked it up to put on my pile here, I thought it was like it was in that section there. I said, what is that? There was these 2 gigantic stitches, and I was like, oh, what's she done already? I said, oh, she's pulled it. But I thought, oh, I'll be able to sort of wiggle it all back in place. But when I started pulling out the yarn to sort of tighten what I thought I'd be able to tighten up the stitches, it just came out. It had sheared. And the yarn's doubled as well. So it had broken both strands. I don't know how she managed to do it. She must have just caught it on something and it snapped both strands. And I had a devil of a time with it. And it's right there in that yellow section. You can't really tell. So I just did the best I could with it. I just, weaved it back through just so it was secure. I knotted the yarn really well, and then I thread it to the inside, because you can't get to the inside because this is knit in a tube. You can't get to the inside to sort of fix it from the inside. But I think it'll be all right. I've knotted the 2 ends really well. I'm sure it won't come apart. And I've not said anything to her because these things happen and she'd just be upset. So I didn't say anything to her.
And it's better that it's worn than hung on the back of the door.
Oh, yeah, and it's the first time that's ever happened with a scarf that she's worn. She's been wearing the other 2 for a couple of years, so all done.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But hold the phone, everybody, because there's only a pattern launch.
Oh, there is.
Oh, my goodness.
So I put out a new pattern yesterday.
It's probably the thing that's been most requested in the history of the world.
Yeah, I've had requests for this pattern for a long time, and I've finally done it. And this design is called Vanilla Cream. These are the Vanilla Cream socks, and as the name suggests, they are a vanilla pair of socks with just a little detail at the cuff. The reason I've done these socks is because I do get a lot of requests because I often mention little techniques that I use to neaten this up, tidy this up, sort out this issue, and I thought, well, it's just time to put all of those little techniques that I use into just one sock. And the pattern includes 6 video tutorials that cover all of the techniques that I now use to produce what I feel is the neatest and tidiest sock that I possibly can. I honestly don't know how I could improve it from the stage I'm at the moment. I thought, yeah, the time is definitely right to do that. So the pattern is now available on Ravelry and Lovecraft's Vanilla Cream socks, and I used loom wool. So this is from the lovely Jess. The main colour is Antiquity, and it's just gorgeous. The thing I love about Jess's yarn is the distribution of speckles. I think it's just perfect, on both socks. The speckling is just lovely. You're not getting any swirly pooling of speckles, which can happen, even in a speckled sock. You can get a repetitive look to it. But I just love how these speckles are. And this is the second time actually I've used her yarn for socks, and I've had brilliant results each time. And I just used a 10-gram mini from Kelly Lay Family Yarns that I had in a colour that I thought just went really well. It's like this Antiquity colour is kind of like a soft lavender, I think, with these little brown specks. It's really, really pretty, and I really enjoyed knitting them. And I can give this pair of socks now, can't I, to Bryony if I wanted to do that. I have got a little stash of socks that I'm starting to gather though, ready for sort of her birthday in October and Christmas, so I might just add them to that, we'll see. So yeah, Vanilla Cream, all ready. If you want to see just exactly how I get the neatest sock I possibly can, then that pattern is available for purchase.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to head back up onto the moors. And I must just say, we touched on in that first part of Walking the Moors, the Cleveland Way, and the difference. Walking over the top of a moor. If you recall, in the first season of Walking the Dales, we went for a walk at War Village. And I walked across a moor, and it's one of the hardest walks I think I've ever done. And it's because I was walking across a wet moor. And this moor, both these moors, were exactly like that. But because of the Cleveland Way, because it's paved, it's brilliant. It's like you're floating over the top. So let's head back up onto Gisborough Moor and see if we can find Cod Hill Cairn.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Walking the Moors. This is Cod Hill Heights, called such because it's cold and we're up really high, and I'm not joking. Now then, at the end of this path, I'm seriously hoping that there is a cairn. It was built 2400 BC. I mean, just try and get your head around that. It's insane, isn't it? It's a site so special that in 1976 it was listed as a scheduled monument, which I think is pretty amazing considering how far away from anything this place is. I've got to say, I am seriously excited about finding this, and I sincerely hope I can find it, because I've seen cairns marked on maps for years and I've never managed to get to one. So, fingers crossed that today we can actually find it. We're really starting to rise now, and I can see up on the top there what looks like some stones. I have a feeling that this is it. This is Cod Hill Cairn, and what an absolutely breathtaking place. This could not be any more prominent than what it is. It literally feels like we're looking down on everything that's around us. Now, that might seem strange as some grouse just fly away from me coming out of the heather, but prominent was how it was done back then, because you wanted somewhere prominent to celebrate the lives of the people that you'd lost. And let me tell you, I don't think you could really get any more prominent around here than this. My goodness, what a place. And as we leave Cod Hill Cairn behind us, I can't help but start to see the similarities between our ancestors. And I mean, this is long way ago ancestors, isn't it? I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of years ago. And here they are burying their dead and celebrating their dead in stone buildings, in prominent places. And to me, the similarities between this and the way that we go about our lives now, when you consider the churches that we build in the hearts of our communities. And this was really the heart of their community, because in the land all around this spot were fields and homes, and this was a place where people lived because it was up high, it was safe, you could see for miles around, and also as well it lifted you out up above what was back then an awful lot of forest, of dense forest. And when I start to get really excited is when you start to think, perhaps when you consider that that was a stone building that people who had died and who were loved and who were cherished was placed, was that the seed that grew into the churches and cathedrals that we all cherish so much today? There's another grouse. I think it's fair to say that this is a pretty stupendous spot for bird watching, given the fact that grouse are everywhere and there's curlews crying and flying and all sorts. It's marvellous. I think though the chances of us seeing a hen harrier are pretty rare, but you never know, so I shall keep my eyes peeled. As we've already discovered on today's walk, this area has been a hotbed of human activity for thousands of years. Now, we visited a cairn, one of the places where they used to bury their dead, but what about where they lived? Well, just up ahead is Highcliffe Nab, and this is a part of the world that's been extensively dug by archaeologists. What did they find here? Well, it was a Mesolithic village. Let's go see if we can find it. Goodness me, you can't miss that. Welcome everyone to Highcliffe Nab. Now, there's an interesting little tidbit of information about Highcliffe Nab. If you stand on the top of the nab and if you look across in that direction, it's actually at an angle of 220 degrees. The hills drop down on one side and they rise up again on the other, and it creates a V in the landscape. And on the winter solstice, it lines up perfectly with the sunrise. Now, that could be a coincidence, but when you start to sort of think about the links between so many other sites, Stonehenge for one, which they found is definitely linked to the rising and the setting of the sun, and also the moon as well, you start to realise that perhaps our ancestors were quite a lot cleverer than we realised. They certainly lived in a way which was much closer and much more connected to their landscape and the world around them. It's food for thought, I think. We're making our way to the final destination on today's walk. It's the village we've actually been circling around all day, so I'm really looking forward to getting to it and seeing what it's like. It's a short walk through these rather delightful woods, they're called Hutton Woods, before we get to Hutton Village, which I'm told is absolutely beautiful. Let's go see if it is. You can absolutely see why. Would you believe this gorgeous place used to have its own railway station? For 50 years, until I think it was 1904. It was private too. It was only used by the lords of the manor who lived at Hutton Hall, just on the outskirts of the village. Hutton Hall now actually is executive apartments. But it was actually used by the village and by sightseers and people coming to take a look around and go for lovely walks like us today. Until 1964, I think it was 1904 till 1964, it was used by everybody, but then the line closed. Now, it's a shame it's gone, because I love steam trains in particular, but actually, if it was here, I think it would take away something from this place, because it really is stunning. Well, look at this. That looks rather familiar. We've made our way back to the path that heads up to Blue Lake Wood. My goodness, it's absolutely flown by. What a walk this has been. What I've loved so much about this walk is while it's most certainly been wild in those woods and when we were walking across those moors, all the way along this route, it's like I've been walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. From Codhill Cairn to Highcliffe Nab to Hutton Village and the Industrial Revolution, all along the way there's been echoes of our ancestors past. What a wonderful walk. Folks, that's it. We're finished. But don't worry, because I'll see you next time when we will once again be walking the Dales.
Well, we did it!
I loved it. I thought it had a completely different feel.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because I don't think I'll ever forget the feel of Codhill Cairn, but also the top of Highcliffe Nab. Both those
Love
places
to have a picnic there. It looked great, didn't it?
had a really sort of eerie's the wrong word, because it wasn't scary.
Atmosphere.
The atmosphere was really interesting. We've said many times in many of our adventures that we've undertaken over the years that places have a feel that is given to them by the things that have taken place.
I absolutely believe that, yeah.
And both of those places felt different. You know, they both had very different feels, but very sort of welcoming, very special places that I'll not forget that I visited.
Did it have, you know, the cairn? Because people are still buried under there, aren't they?
There'll be bones and, you know, because it's thousands of years ago. I mean, one of the things that I think a lot of people expect when they go and look at a cairn, and there are some cairns which are really still quite well formed, but the majority of them look very similar to what we saw at Codhill, which is, you know, you can get an idea of, because we're talking thousands of years ago.
You know, things change, don't they, over the years?
But what you did see all across the moor was loads and loads of worked stone.
Yeah.
It's just everywhere.
But did it have, I would have expected it to have a sort of church-like quality.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I made the reference. To me, the link is clear and obvious between that cairn and the many thousands of them that are all across. They were in Europe too. All Celtic people used cairns. The link between those and the church that we visited in our last walk in the Dales, in the lovely snowy walk, the feel of those two places were exactly the same. And I find that fascinating.
Really interesting.
That is definitely the seed which grew into churches and cathedrals and all the places which so many of us cherish, you know, to this day. But Highcliffe Nab, that you can see why they picked it, because you were up high, so you'd feel safe.
Yeah. And
back then, it was very densely forested all around. And what was so interesting is standing up there, you could see they found two other Mesolithic sites and Bronze Age sites, again high up.
Right.
And they're in like a triangle.
Very defensive positions, aren't they? It's very easy to defend yourself because
When
you
you're
can just
high.
see who's coming all the way around.
We've spoken about the enjoyment of walking through the seasons, and next time we go for a walk, we'll be back in the Dales, and I have a feeling we're going to see a riot of colour. because we're going to be into...
It'll be another few weeks on, and
That's exactly right. And I've loved this journey so far, you know, from the bleakness of that first walk to the sort of snowy, you know, beautiful landscapes that we saw, to just starting to see things peeking through. Next time, I think everything's going to be out.
Yeah.
Next episode, it's time for another of Kay's favourite colourways.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Haven't decided yet.
We know you guys are loving that series, and we're loving putting together this first full series of My Favourite Colouways for you. Really can't wait for that one, and that's coming next time. It's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I've got a very exciting Endy Bit.
Right.
I purchased some yarn recently, and this particular dyer, I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been on Stitched by Mrs. D. Paula might have had some minis from her, and I thought, oh, I have heard of that dyer, but I've never purchased minis, so I'm going to go and have a look at a shop. So I purchased a bundle, which it's the lady's name is Hayley. It's a partnership. Hayley and her husband Nick, they work together, and this bundle that I purchased was called a Misfit mini bundle, and the dyer is Ducky Darlings. So cute. And this bundle, if you can see, it's all different weights. It's basically like at the end of a skein, because quite often a skein of yarn that you've bought to dye on, and especially sometimes if you dye on like bigger skeins, like maybe a cone or something, you might have sort of 10 grams, 15 grams left at the end. So what Hayley's done is put these together in a little bundle. So some of them look like they might be 5 grams, 6 grams, and others look like they're much bigger than that. But it's just all a different selection, which I think is great. Different bases, different types of dyeing methods. You know, we've got solids, we've got tonals, we've got some speckles. So I thought this is great just for my scrappy projects. Lovely. And when I received it, I thought it came in a big box, and I'm like, I didn't order all that. But sometimes I forget what I've ordered. We all know this. I thought, well, maybe I ordered more. But I didn't. Hayley very kindly had put in some extras, and what she sent was a set of her paint box minis. Aren't these fabulous? And these are 10 grams, I think. Yeah, 10 times 10 grams. Lovely. And I was thrilled by this. And I've got to say, I am going to keep one, and I'm going to use the other as a prize. But she sent me 2 of her sock tubes. So these are cranked on a circular sock machine, and all you need to do is put in cuffs, heels and toes. And I wanted to try that for ages. You know, I kind of wish circular sock machines weren't as expensive as they are. There is an appeal, I think, to, you know, just quickly cranking a sock tube, and then all you've got to do is put in cuffs, heels and toes. I know that you can on some circular sock machines, you can actually do the whole sock, but I think it's quite a learning process. So I'm going to use one of these as a prize. I think I'm going to use this one as a lovely prize. It's springtime.
Wow.
So I'm just going to keep that, and the next time we need some prizes for you, all you lovely viewers, I'm going to use that. So Hayley, thank you so much. And she also gave me a discount code for her shop. So if you want to go and have a look in Hayley's shop, it's Ducky Darlings. Then she gave me a discount code for all you lovely viewers. It'll appear on the screen, but it's BBDD10. That gives you 10% off if you purchase anything over £25. That doesn't include subscriptions, kits, and subscriptions. So it's just purely for like one-off purchases over £25.
Superb.
So thank you, Hayley and Nick. That's fantastic, and I can't wait. I didn't want to start working with these until I showed you, but I can't wait to start using those. It's really fun and a brilliant way to make sure that you're using every bit of your yarn as a dyer. So I think that's really eco. It feels really eco.
Now then,
friendly.
Our next P.O.P live show is coming up. It's going to be on the 29th of March at 2 p.m, but it's British summertime. So make sure you check your local listings as to what 2 p.m. British summertime is. As usual, the link to the show will go live at 1:30 p.m. And many of you might be wondering, how do I watch P.O.P live? Well, we mentioned Knitability at the start of the show, and now we're mentioning P.O.P and our P.O.P live show. Now, our P.O.P shows is something that we do every month. It's our patron-only show. And if you are a $2 patron of the Bakery Bears, you can access Knitability, so the latest copy of Knitability, and you can also watch every pop show that we've ever done.
And there's quite a lot now, isn't there?
There's about 36 episodes to go. So for $2 a month, you get to watch the Pop Show. And if you're a $2 patron, you can access the Pop Show on the 29th of March from 3:10. But if you want to watch it live, that's available to our silver, gold and platinum patrons, and we'll be broadcasting live from 2 p.m. British summertime, as we always do for our Pop Show. So it's the usual routine. And we'll of course be having our latest Amazonian Warrior
I was going to
Challenge.
say, what on earth are we doing with Amazon?
Amazonian Warrior Challenge update. So it'll be time for me once again to get out my spreadsheets, and we can take a look and see how.
And it'll be time for a prize as well, won't it?
No, it's.
Oh, is it not? It's the end of March.
It is the end of March, but I can only calculate.
Oh, right. We've got to wait
to the end of February, so it's April that we'll do prizes.
Okay.
So the April show will be the first prizes for our Amazonian Warrior Challenge. And remember, all the details for that are linked to the show notes below, but the knitting element's open to all of our Bakery Bear patrons, and the running and walking element is open to anybody, so please do come and get involved. Vanilla cream socks are, of course, now out.
Yes, they're out.
Did you hear our latest radio show? We were discussing musicals, the magic of the musicals, question mark.
A little bit controversial in parts.
Very controversial. And we also missed one of, it's the only one that I can think of that we missed that formed such a huge part of my teenage life.
You missed Grease.
You love it too.
I love it too, yeah.
We all love it.
Yeah.
So Grease would have definitely come
It would,
up there, you know, in our...
There's just such a lot, you know, when you're trying to think of all your favourites.
Well, you see, the reason why I don't immediately jump to Grease is because we were talking about proper musicals.
Yeah.
And Grease, for me, is a film that became a musical.
Yes, I know what you mean.
You could argue that The Greatest Showman potentially might follow the same route because it hasn't yet. So really that is, you know, a film first. But Grease for me always was more of a cinematic experience rather than a theatrical experience. And in our Magic of the Musicals episodes, we were very much talking about theatrical experiences.
Yes.
We spoke of our favourites. We also spoke of the ones we didn't like.
Yes.
So head over there and take a listen. I think you'll find it quite fun. Did you have some yarn to show?
I've just got one last thing. I dyed up some yarn for myself recently, and do you know I've been having this whole issue with finding a yarn to re-knit my prairie socks design, and I'm still having this issue. And one day last week I just thought, you know what? I've got this colour in my head. I'm just going to go and dye it. So I went straight, pulled out my dyes out of the garage, and I just dyed up this colour that had been in my head. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this to re-knit my prairie socks. And I seem to be obsessed by green still. And the colour I kind of had in my head was a very fresh green. So green with a lot of gold in there, and there's actually, believe it or not, there's a wash of blue being put in there as well, because you can in places see that it's a little bit more of a bluey green, but it's this gorgeous fresh tonal green with lots of gold. You can see up here the gold, and round here gold. So it gave me that feeling of prairie fields, but with a hint of the sort of wheat fields as well going on. So the freshness of of new grass coming up, but also I wanted to get into the golden wheat sort of colour. So I think that's the colour that I'm going to use. It's so pretty, isn't it? Such a fresh colour, and it will photograph well as well. That's always another consideration. I know it will photograph really clearly and nicely.
That's it. Another walk in the moors is in the books, and we can now look forward when we see you next time to another of Kay's favourite colourways. So thank you so much for watching.
Thanks everybody.
Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time for more.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay the Bakery Bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which they're favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern and get yourself a Bakery Bear. bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or